Hello and welcome again to What If Natives Won, a video blogging channel about alternate history and American Indians, Native Americans, Indigenous peoples. This is the 19th video of 28 planned ones. My name is Carroll. I'm Associate Professor of History at Northern Virginia Community College. I've written mostly about wars, veterans, human rights, and genocide. I'm also, together with Rob Schmidt of Bluecorn Comics, editing and putting out a short story collection, What If Natives Won. This is what this video blog and channel are about. There's a huge lack of alternate history written about American Indians, indigenous people. Many don't like to think about genocides in America. They likely were never taught about them. Many don't want to be reminded, want to believe these genocides never happened, or that it was somehow an accident. I've had great success using alternate history to teach my students, show them that absolutely nothing in history was inevitable. It never had to be. The worst of human history is always a conscious choice. How things turn out is based on how evil the evil choose to be, and how well and how strongly good people choose to stand up to them or stop them. The way things turn out in history took a very specific set of circumstances. Sometimes history turns on very small things. Change even one and you have an entirely different history, different present, different society. It may be hard to hear this, but we live right now in a dystopian world, one of the worst of all possible outcomes for anyone who is not white. America is today 98% non-native. At least 75 million to 112 million natives were killed by not one genocide, but a series of them. These many genocides, the last of them ended only in the year 2000 in Peru, and also happened in America, Brazil, Canada, Guatemala, Argentina, Mexico, and elsewhere. On top of that is massive genocide denial. This is not taught in almost all American schools. There are racist images everywhere that are often not admitted to be racist. But much of this could change if American traitors are defeated at the Battle of San Jacinto. If the Texas Republic is defeated, then ethnic cleansing in Texas, something very few Americans know about, is prevented. The war with Mexico is prevented, which means California Indian genocide is prevented. There is so much mythology surrounding Texas, its supposed independence, and its war on Mexico and Mexicans and natives. This is what should be called Texas exceptionalism, Texas nationalism. There are even recent separatist and secessionist, outright terrorist groups. White supremacists with a history of murder, assassination attempts against Presidents Clinton and Bush, and plots to use biological weapons and attack U.S. soldiers. A brief history of what became Texas starts off with a series of attempts by private American mercenary armies, filibusters, trying to take over Texas as early as the 1800s. Crushing one of those attacks killed many in the territory, so some Mexican officials allowed some American colonists in. Contrary to myths about Texans fighting for freedom, the new colonists were mostly trying to make Texas a U.S. slave state. Many brought in slaves. This was illegal since Mexico had outlawed slavery. Over a third of these American colonists were also illegal immigrants and very recent arrivals. Davy Crockett was only in Texas 2 weeks before the Alamo. But that didn't stop Texas nationalists from portraying themselves ever since as the true or real Texans, and Mexicans as the invaders or attackers, no matter how many generations they had been there, sometimes thousands of years. Finally, these invaders were also traitors to Mexico. Contrary to myth, only part of Texas briefly broke away, kind of, mostly by bad luck, not skill. Their would-be army was poorly trained and sometimes completely untrained militia, and they lost most of their battles. The Alamo is a good example. This militia got trapped and then wiped out in a useless battle, their deaths only becoming important as a rallying cry for propaganda, turning the uprising into a race war. The insurgent army and rangers ethnically cleansed Mexicans in 5 towns, murdering civilians, carrying out arson and mass rapes. Insurgent militia under Sam Houston were losing so badly they were fleeing to the U.S. border. By chance, they discovered a part of the Mexican army that didn't post sentries, so they massacred sleeping soldiers. By chance also, they captured the Mexican president and forced him to sign an invalid treaty, never agreed to by Mexico's people or government. Texas insurgents never really wanted independence. They applied to be a U.S. slave state only 2 days after starting their uprising. American President Van Buren turned them down. Too much conflict over slavery already. Reluctantly, they were forced to try to be independent for 9 years, until a new pro-war and pro-slavery U.S. President, Polk, wanted Texas. Texas, in its 9 years, was broke, with a failing economy, worthless money, constant fighting among its people and government. It had 9 capitals in 9 years. Its navy kept sinking. Its army and rangers could not hold any territory, but still sent 2 failed invasions into Mexico. Insurgents spent most of their 9 years of would-be independence ethnically cleansing native tribes, mostly peaceful ones. Cherokee refugees from the Trail of Tears were forced out by the army, a fourth of them killed. Shawnee that had fought on the Texas insurgent side were also forced out. Several tribes were falsely accused of conspiring with Mexico. Some of the ethnic cleansing began before the uprising to become a slave state. Colonial leader Stephen Austin invented stories of Karankawa being cannibals, and then had his militia exterminate them. The only native nations to defeat Texas ethnic cleansing were Comanche and Apache. The Comanche lost over 30 of their leaders at peace talks, the Council House Massacre. They destroyed the town of Linville in retaliation. Rangers and militia tried and failed to punish them, then pretended they won the battle. Texas President Lamar's ethnic cleansing finally bankrupted this would-be nation, and he ended his term in disgrace on his slave plantations. How to stop this? It's as simple as changing one battle. Santana has often been mocked by Texas nationalist historians. The truth is, he won most of his battles. He was one of the best generals to lead Mexico to independence from Spain, and then defeat one attempt by Spain after another to reconquer Mexico. He also defeated one opponent in Mexico after another. This included the Alamo. 2 simple errors, not posting sentries and camping with no escape route, and the American invaders lose, or at least it's inconclusive. Houston and most of the colonists flee. Mexico could invite in others of the 5 civilized tribes, refugees from the Trail of Tears, those of them who were not slave owners, to join Cherokee already in Texas. Any remaining American colonists have to choose to not be slave owners, and future ones know better. Mexico could also invite in free blacks and runaway slaves. These are all similar practices to what Spain and Mexico had done before and after, with Genezados in New Mexico, Seminoles in Florida, Kickapoo and Shawnee as buffers against the Apache and Comanche. Mexico could also invite in German colonists. In our own time, Germans came in large numbers in 1842 on, and became the majority in much of Texas, as the map shows. They were strongly anti-racist, anti-slavery, had good relations with Mexicans and natives, and were willing to fight and die for these causes. By 1850, there were 30,000 of them in Texas. Under this, there would likely be more. There is no doubt pro-slavery Americans still want Texas as a slave state, and they want war with Mexico. Defeating American invaders in Texas makes that goal much more difficult. It happens later, if at all. Without more slave states in America, slave owners fear slavery being outlawed, and are more likely to provoke the U.S. Civil War by seceding 10 to 15 years earlier. The U.S.-Mexico War is avoided. Then the gold rush in California brings wealth to Mexico. It strengthens Mexico. A Mexico without losing its northern half is stronger and better able to fight off American domination. Thus, not only is there no ethnic cleansing of natives in Texas, there is no California Indian genocide that kills at least 120,000, reduces tribes from tens of thousands to hundreds or dozens, and enslaves survivors. Avoiding 2 genocides is definitely native victory. This is the end of the 19th video. I look forward to your comments and questions, and will answer them as often as I can. Racism, genocide denial, childish behavior, personal attacks get deleted. I do recognize some questions will be asked in ignorance, because much of the facts I point to are new to most people. They were never taught about this. They've been raised in denial, since denying indigenous genocides is taught in almost all public schools. Next time we will discuss what if the British Empire annexes Texas and California. Please repost freely, subscribe, like, share, and comment. I'll post again in about a week. This has been What If Natives Won video blog and channel.